Welcome to the 40-second lesson of SmartKnitter Knit Instructions Level 2. In this lesson, we will discuss adding, deleting, and moving rows for editing purposes. Let's look at the first example with Intarsia. Translate the original file. We can see that feeder 3 is brought from left to right with tucks and floats, then brought back again. This creates unnecessary floats within the panel area. Return to SmartGraph. Move the left side neck bottom bind off down by one row to ensure the direction of the feeders is correct. Translate again, and we can see that the right and left side neck bottom bind offs are done independently. There are no excess floats in the panel area. Let's move on to another example, which is a panel with a knitted collar band and a ribbed base. Upon translation, there is a prompt warning that feeder 4 is clashing with the needles. We can see that after the last short row, feeder 4 stops inside the knitting area instead of at the panel edge. Return to SmartGraph. Remove the last short row on the right side with color 0. Translate again, and now feeder 4's knitting direction is correct without clashing. Move on to another example with full-on bird's eye jacquard. Upon translation, we can see that there is a prompt warning that feeder 3 cannot be brought in for knitting. We can see that feeder 3 is knitted to the panel edge, but in the next bind-off row, feeder 3 starts in the middle of the panel. Return to SmartGraph and duplicate a row in the sweep. Translate again. Now feeder 3 is knitted to the middle of the panel from the right before bind-off. Let's look at example 4 with Intarsia. Upon translation, we can see that at the neck bottom, feeder 3 is knitted to the right and brought back with tucks and floats to knit the left side. At the ending row before cast-off, the feeders are also brought out with tucks. This indicates the feeder directions are incorrect. Return to SmartGraph. We can simply correct this by moving the bind-off section at the neck bottom up or down by one row. Correct the zone allocations as shown. Delete the last row before cast-off. Translate again. Now feeder 3 is knitted and bound off at the neck bottom correctly. In the end, both feeders are knitted to the panel edges before cast-off. Let's look at another panel with a half cardigan structure. Translate the original file. We can see there are transfers before bind-off. Return to SmartGraph. The problem is caused by having the narrowing symbol and bind-off symbol in the same row. The narrowing symbol and bind-off symbol must be staggered by one row. Insert an empty row above the bind-off row. Move the left part of the row with the narrowing symbol up to the empty row. Translate again. After the amendment, there are no transfers before the bind-off. Let's move on to a panel with jacquard. Translate, and we can see that before the cast-off section, feeders 3 and 5 are brought in from the left panel edge with tucks and floats. Return to SmartGraph to extend the short row all the way towards the panel edge. As this is a two-color jacquard, we must consider the feeder direction of both colors. Check the zone color, it should match the original zone color. Translate again. Now feeders 3 and 5 are knitted towards the cast-off section instead of away from it. There will be no tucks or floats in the panel. This marks the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching.